this is Jen from Newton's Nook Designs. Today I'm going to be creating a fun Hoopy birthday card. This birthday card features our Hula Hoop Newton stamp set. I've also used our circle frames die set to create those fun intertwining circles, and I'm going to share with you how I did that. First, let's take a look at the Hula Hoop Newton stamp set. This stamp set features Newton twirling in a hula hoop along with some fun hula hoop themed sentiments. We have Hoop Hoop Hooray, Hoop There It Is, You Deserve All the Hoopla, and have a Hoopy Birthday, which is what I used on the card today. You also get a fun birthday balloon and a shooting star that you can add on to your card. A die set is available if you would like to purchase that as well. When I created my original card, I colored Newton in orange, but today I'm going to switch things up and I'm using this cute gray kitty that I colored. When I was working on projects for this release, I colored a whole bunch of different kitties, and I thought this one would match perfectly with the paper because it has the lime green hula hoop. For the kitty, I just used shades of cool gray and a little bit of a darker gray for the stripes. Next, I'm going to choose a paper for the background. I'm using our Birthday Party 6x6 paper pack, and this pack is filled with all kinds of awesome birthday patterns. You could really use any of these for the background. The confetti would look great, or the cupcakes, or the birthday candles. There's just so many fun things to choose from that it's kind of hard to pick a favorite. I decided I wanted to use the same pattern I used on my original card, which is a bunch of squiggly lines. I thought that went really well with the hula hoop theme. So there it is. That's the one I'm going to be using today. So I've taken that piece of paper and I've cut it down to be 4 by 5 1/4, and that size will fit just inside the front of a A2 card front with a little bit of a white border around it. So I'm going to set that aside until we're ready to use it. The next step is to create the fun circles that are going across the card. So these circles are created by using 2 dies from our Circle Frames die set. Let me give you a closer look at the Circle Frames die set. This die set has circles in a variety of sizes. Some of them have scallops and some of them are just regular circles, and they all have a fun stitching along the edge. You also get a cute little heart in the center. As I mentioned before, I'm actually using 2 dies to create those fun hoops. So I'm choosing the 2 smallest dies from the Circle Frames die set. As you can see, that's going to create the inner and the outer die cut. Now I got out my die cutting platform and the paper I wanted to cut and lay that on the top. Then I placed the 2 circle dies on top of that, kind of aligning them the best I could to be centered to each other. Then I took a piece of removable tape and placed that over the top to hold them together. So this is going to keep the 2 pieces in place and cut the hoop shape. Then I went ahead and cut that piece out with my die cutter. Once it's through the die cutter and the piece is cut out, you just want to carefully pop it out of the shape. You don't want to remove the tape or peel it out too quickly because we're going to use that tape again to cut out the next piece. So there I'm just popping out the center. I don't need that right now, so I'm setting it aside. And then I'm peeling out the hoop. So there it is. You can see how fun that was, just having the 2 pieces together to create a fun new shape. Now I'm going to cut that again for each of the other colors and shapes that I need. And you can see I'm just carefully pulling this off so that I can set it down again and cut the next piece, and it will be exactly the same. So I've cut that out in the 3 colors. So I have 2 teal, 2 lime green, and 2 white. And then I have all those extra little circles that I'm just going to set aside. Those will be great for another project. I always save my extra pieces because you never know when they're going to come in handy. And then you don't have to cut them out again, so that's always nice. Now I have all the pieces I need for the card, and I just have to assemble everything. So I'm getting out that piece I had cut earlier that's going to be the card front panel, and I'm going to arrange the pieces over the top of it across the card at sort of a diagonal. The first time I did this, it took me a little while to figure out exactly where I wanted everything. I kept moving things around until I liked the arrangement. But now that I've done it once, I can just use the first one as sort of a template and copy the same layout. So that makes it a little bit easier, which is the great thing about making multiple cards. The second one is always a lot easier. So once I have everything in place, I'm going to get out some liquid glue to glue the pieces together. I'm going to carefully hold one piece where it overlaps and just kind of peel it up and put a little dab of glue behind the overlapping part. I found that was the easiest way to kind of tack the pieces together without moving the whole thing. Because once you have it arranged, you don't want it falling all over the place. So I did that across the whole top, and once that was done, I flipped it over and glued across the whole other side. Now I'm flipping the piece over and gluing it down onto that fun pattern piece. I'm not really worrying too much about if it goes off the edge. I'm just putting it where I think it looks good. In fact, I actually kind of like it when it rolls off the edge. I think of hula hoops running across the front of the card, and I like that idea. So I'm just pushing it down, and I find one piece that's not quite glued all the way, so I'm going to add some glue there. And then when that's finished, I'm going to flip it over. Now I'm going to take a scissor and just snip off the pieces that extend beyond the edge. Then I'm going to take the liquid glue again and just fill the whole back of the card and then place that on the card base. Now my whole background is ready to go, and we just need to add Newton and the sentiment. So I'm deciding where I want to put my image. I'm just kind of moving it around until I find the exact spot I want it. I always like to do that before I put any glue onto my pieces, just in case I don't like how it looks. Here I have the Have a Hoopy Birthday sentiment, and I embossed that on a banner that was cut out with our Banner Duo die set. I've decided it's a little bit too long for this card, so I'm just using a scissor and clipping off the edges. Now I'm ready to glue all my pieces, and I'm just using a three-dimensional foam tape. This is a great way to add a little bit of interest and dimension to your cards by just popping up the sentiment or the image. In this case, I'm going to do both. Since all the circles are flat in the background, adding some dimension to the kitty and the sentiment really gives an extra pop to the card. Now that I have my banner glued down, I'm using the same foam tape and cutting it into lots of little pieces so that it fits to cover the back of the kitty. Now, I am adding a lot of little pieces. You probably wouldn't have to do so many. Sometimes I do more than I need to. I'm always afraid a card is going to get squished, so I like to put foam all over the little bits. But you wouldn't have to do that if you knew you were just going to hand the card to someone in person. Now I have to peel off all those little liners of the foam tape pieces, and then once I have it ready to go, I'm going to decide where I want to put that on my card. Now I kind of decided earlier where I want it. Sometimes I change my mind once I get to the final layout, and I did put it a little bit over to the right from where I originally thought, because here I think it looks like he's kind of bouncing off the sentiment banner and dancing with his hula hoop. So that's my final card. You can see both versions are very similar, but they're a little bit different. And that's the great thing about handmade cards, is you always have some unique creation. I hope you enjoyed seeing how I made this card today, and I hope I gave you some ideas on how you can combine your dies to make new shapes. Everything I used today can be found over at newtonsnookdesigns.com, and while you're here, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you can be notified when we add new content. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful crafty day.